I know quite a few people who watch our channel are watching it to get a feel of what it might be like to move to another country. I know that when we were thinking about moving from New Zealand to, at that time, Guatemala, we watched a ton of social media content to try and just get a handle on what it feels like to move to another country. It might have just been the algorithm that was playing games with me, but it seemed that an inordinate amount of content that came up on my feed were from people that had experienced utopian, picture-perfect experiences when they had moved to another country. Nothing ever seemed to go wrong. What sort of content am I talking about? Well, take this guy, for example.
I try to act like a superstar, get tattoos without colors, in a place where it's showing, feeling like a rock star, 'cause tonight I'm
in Paraguay. I've been here for about 2 weeks now, so I know just about everything that you want to know about a country. So if you want to know more about Paraguay, well, hit me up. The contact details are below. As long as you've got enough folding green, I'll be happy to talk to you. But since I've been here, man, I'm so popular. Everyone loves me. So much so that they even named a motorbike after me, would you believe? Check that out. Now, they tell me that that bike was named Star before I got here, but hey, they would say that, wouldn't they, the kidders? Hasn't got XP in it, but they're not perfect, that's why I'm here. But you can imagine with a sweet set of wheels like that, well, let's just say I'm pretty popular with the ladies. I've got a real firecracker on the go at the moment. I'm just looking forward to spending more time with her when the school holidays kick in. But apart from that, I'm just staying busy, keeping out of trouble. Going to the gym every day, as you can see, but you know, the problem is I can't find a gym with mirrors or weights big enough to handle a man like me. And in the meantime, I've just been, trading, keeping myself out of trouble. I've had a bit of a down week this week, to be honest. I only made 12k yesterday, but the day before that, I picked up a unit in a Sue for about 55k, and tomorrow I expect to flip it for about 140. So keeping the wolves away from the door, so to speak. If you want to be like me and you've got enough folding green, hit me up in the contact details below and I'll be happy to chat. So as useful as that information might be, what I really yearned for was what had gone wrong. If I'm climbing Mount Everest and I see the guy that's just scaled the peak, on his way down, I want to hear about all of the things that went wrong, all of the mistakes he made, all of the things he wished he'd done better. And so is the reason for this video. I want to talk about two key things that kind of didn't go to plan for us. And although we survived them and came out with just a few scrapes and bruises, I think they're important tales to tell for anyone that's thinking about moving to another country. My old car. Well, when we moved to Paraguay, we really wanted a set of wheels. We'd been for many months without a car in Guatemala and Nicaragua. We really wanted to get around Paraguay and see what there was to see. When we first arrived, we were given some advice in respect to cars in Paraguay. The first thing was to be very, very careful. The second piece of advice I was given was that if at all possible, buy a car that has been recently imported into the country. The rationale is that the more recently arrived cars have a less of a chance of having fallen into the hands of mechanics who weren't perhaps entirely competent. Now, I took that advice on board, but I also realised in order to follow that advice, you'd have to really invest a significant sum. Recently imported recent model vehicles are a large investment. And at the time, we weren't even 100% sure if we were going to stay in Paraguay. So to put such a significant resource into a car at that time seemed to be kind of risky. So I thought, well, maybe the next best thing to do is to choose a type of car that's renowned for its reliability. So of course I thought, well, that's got to be Toyota. And then the next thing I thought, well, if we're going to buy a car that's been here for a while, perhaps if we buy an older model car, it'll have less electronics, less computer gadgets in it. So hopefully that it will be a more simple proposition in terms of getting it back to at least a reasonable roadworthy condition. Even to this point, I still think that those kind of assumptions had some level of validity. But what I didn't really take into account, what I underestimated, was the challenge in finding a mechanic that was competent and willing to take on an older Toyota that had been so significantly tampered with. That was something that I really did not have a real handle on when we moved to Paraguay. And even to this day, it has its repercussions. In a recent message to a friend of mine who had WhatsApped me and asked how I was going, I wrote to him, "My car is broken down again. This is at least the 10th time it's broken down in the past year. Every time I take it back, plead with the mechanic to find whatever faults exist and to fix them. And every time, a week later, it breaks down again. This car has made me lose the will to live. It's broken me to the core of my soul. It has driven me to the pit of despair that's past the dark side of hell." Well, I was kind of being a little bit, I guess, sesquipedalian, a bit excessive in my Shakespearean fervour. But the truth is, this car has driven me to the brink. And I think if the world ever falls off its axis and then they're looking for a way to reset the global timepieces, they'll be able to take my car and drive it, and it will break down with such timing and precision that they'll be able to reset all of the world's timepieces. I have no doubt about it. Be so careful when it comes to cars in Paraguay. And this is the part of the video where I should be giving well, what's the solution? Well, partly the solution is to take the initial advice that was given to me, and that is, if possible, buy a car that's been recently imported. That's not an absolute guarantee though, because, well, who knows? The other issue is that cars that have been recently imported by dealers often offer very little in the way of warranties. Sometimes warranties are offered and they're rock solid until you call upon them. So even the best plan really isn't without its risk, but I guess it's better than no plan at all. So buying a car in Paraguay is such a significant undertaking, and its ability to follow you around like a bad smell if it doesn't go to plan is something that has been truly mind-altering for us, and it's ongoing, but you live and you learn. We are still wading through a process in regards to a property purchase that did not go as we expected. We have written a property buying guide, and there are some stories in there where the names and some of the circumstances have been changed to protect the innocent. Suffice to say, in that particular document, there is a story that very closely aligns to the experience that we encountered. We thought that we had every base covered. We had taken good advice, as we thought, from very qualified people here in Paraguay. We hadn't been here for a ton of time, but we didn't really swim against any strong advice that we'd been given. Maybe we just hadn't yet availed ourselves of enough good, competent advice and friends to be able to steer us in the right direction. We tried to proceed with the purchase, but despite our best efforts, it was frustrated by the other party. And what we learned from it was a lesson that we will never forget, and one that we try and pass on to others. And sometimes we've seen people benefit from that, other times we've seen them ignore it, and they too have gone on to pay the price. When you're buying a property in Paraguay, be very careful about paying any deposit for it. Our policy now is strictly no deposit. We will not pay a deposit on a property in Paraguay if we're going to buy another. The reason being is that there is no escrow here as we knew it in the country that we came from. And there is a common process where people will pay a deposit, and it's often held with an intermediary, say an escribana or a lawyer, and that is kind of regarded as this country's form of escrow. That's all good until something goes wrong. But in a country where escrow is not the default, if and when a party decides to frustrate the process, it can be so problematic. We just simply will not pay any deposit if we're looking to buy a property. And we proceeded successfully on that basis. We've purchased a property without paying a deposit. The agreement was it was paid all up when the transaction went through, and it worked well. Thankfully, in both of the instances, they were bruises, but that's all. Sometimes you can make mistakes that you can't come back from, and we have seen that, and I've spoken about that in many other videos. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how experienced you are in the country you've come from, how qualified you are. Falling foul of these kind of trapdoors in Paraguay doesn't discriminate. We've seen incredibly well-educated, experienced, wealthy people who have come unstuck. There is no one that's immune from it. We call it the Paraguay punch. If you're not on your game, if you're not really watching the play, Paraguay's got a way of just jumping up and just slamming you. So take care out there. But don't live in fear, because there are ways that you can kind of proceed relatively safely. We're looking to buy another car, and we've learned our lessons, and I think that we will probably, hopefully, look for a recent import, perhaps. Might be the way that we will proceed. We also know a lot more people, and amongst them, everyone says, hey, I've got a mechanic, so we'll pick our most trusted friends, and hopefully they've got the mechanics that can at least look it over and give us the best guess as to how long it's going to stay on the road. But there are no absolutes. And just one final thing when it comes to cars, if there's any truly competent mechanics out there who are thinking about coming to Paraguay, hey, hit us up, let me know, because, man, I truly think that regardless of the fact that we work on a different economy here, there's always room for a mechanic who knows truly what they're doing and is able to work on cars in a way that's in accordance with the way that many people have become accustomed to in other countries. But finding a good mechanic out there is not an easy task. All things considered, we're happy to be here, and hey, it is what it is. Until next time, take care. Ciao.
Sing my songs for some dollars to keep me going. I try to act